We're going to move right to, and let me just advise the applicant that there is a 10-day period during which the applicant may appeal, someone may appeal.
Yeah, not the applicant.
Just so not the applicant. You would not appeal yourself.
Well, you can if you want.
Unless there's contention within that camp. So we are now to review after final for the landscape pathways.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, what a day.
Yeah. Feels like a Monday.
Don't have teenagers. It's my new mantra in life.
It's too late.
Or at least,
It's too late.
Okay. You have my, give me my starting point stuff. You can look at this, but you want to see this first. You want me to move over one?
No, Phil, just give me a...
Never.
Are you ready, ma'am?
introduce yourself for the record and let's get
Katie O'Reilly Rogers, landscape architect.
Good.
Trish Allen with SEPs.
Thank you.
Bearing your stuff. You want me to hold it up separate?
Well, maybe there are only two of those. There. I'm sorry, you're going to have to look at this one. Somehow there's only two. So what we'd like to talk to you about today is pathway widths. When we first came, I need those. When we first came in, most of the existing pathways on site were 42 inches, and they have a little soldier course on the edge that's 2 1/8 inch, so that makes the actual path width about 38 inches. Which doesn't meet ADA and is sort of hard for hotel operations. This plan that says approved, you never saw this before, but what you did see is package by package. And I can pass these around. Here's Wishing Well, number 11. It was approved with a 5-foot path to here. Unfortunately, what was approved around Building 12 was a 4-foot path, so you go 4 foot and suddenly you have room for your carts, and then you don't. This is all 4 feet. Oh, it gets better. The yellow was approved at 4 feet. The magenta was approved at 5 feet, and the little pink was approved at 42 inches. It was felt that where a path is just going to serve an individual unit, it could go down to the small size. So what you're looking at is a compilation of all the individual packages that this board has reviewed and approved. You haven't reviewed and approved this area, which was why I don't show it, waterfall or these paths or Mission Village. But the general site has been looked over. The next sheet, which says proposed, is some changes that we would like to make for operation's sake. You remember this has been approved at 5 feet, but that was 4 feet, as was that and that. And for ADA and for hotel operations, we would like to have the east-west pathways 5 feet. The pathways that are running north-south cannot be made ADA because of the existing slope. There are a number of ramps within those pathways, but those are dealt with per the design of the brick walkways. So what we would like is this path east-west from the main building to be 5 feet to this little turnaround area, 5 feet around overlook, 5 feet back and around. Pathways up to the individual units for the most part are either 42 or 48 inches as previously reviewed. And then there would also be a pathway you could come from drop-off area either through the arbor or up and around and across here at 5 feet so that they could get handicapped guests and luggage, etc., up to the new Mission Village from the entry point. The walkway details remain the same. The old used brick, not new manufactured brick with white paint to look old, but the old used brick with that same little edge detail, the 1-inch rise soldier course on it.
Done?
That's it. That's what we're here to ask for.
I'm going to ask for public comment.
You like that one, Dick?
Oh, fine. Oh, here, that's yours. Kellum DeForest. just wanted to ask the historian, I presume there was no original, as the campus grew, that there was no organized pathway plan from the original landscape design. I also want to ask, if I may, I'm presuming then all of the units will, or should I say, only certain units will be handicapped accessible, and it's a little hard to tell from this, but where the 5-foot paths go up to the rooms, those will be handicapped accessible, and the others will not be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll address that right now.
So Rogers, why don't you do that?
I'll address what I can for Kellum. There are 5 buildings that are ADA accessible with ADA units inside. They all have 48-inch walkways at a minimum to them, because 44 inches is minimum for ADA. The layout of the pathways, with the exception of where the tennis court is, follows the layout of the historic walkways. This one shifted down 4 feet, so it wasn't abutted to those patios off of these units. And of course, where there was tennis court, there were no pathways, so we've tried to echo what's happened with the rest of the site.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for questions from the commission.
Wait, I think.
If I can just step in, Jim Lefevre again from Gensler, just to try and add a little mud to the question of accessibility, if I can. This is a code challenge that we're fighting on this project. It's obviously a problem anytime you deal with a site that's got as much history as this one does and as much topography as it does. There are 5, I'm trying to remember, 5 or 6 required accessible units, but the building code also requires that any unit on grade have an accessible entrance to it. So we do need, as much as we can within the context of the historic fabric of the property and the topography, to get wheelchairs to as many doors as we can. Certainly any of the new units has to be on an accessible path, whether or not it's an accessible unit. And as much as possible, we're trying to pick up the same accessibility for historic buildings. In a lot of cases, we just can't because of the character of the building.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Yes.
This is directed to the applicant. What is your preference in terms of the width of the pathways?
That's not a fair question.
Sure it is.
This is my preference. Given hotel operations and what I believe the historic character of the site, I think this will work just fine. There are some former members of the OEH team who wanted all the pathways at 6 and 7 feet, and I think that would have been excessive. But I think 5 feet with that little curb edge visually comes down, and most of them at 4 feet with that curb. Plus the landscaping is such that it flops over the edges. So.
Thank you.
I have a question. On this, remind me again, on the terminus of this pathway, what happens right here? Is it cut at this angle, or that's
this is all a
walkway?
brick. This is all a brick patio, and that's the front doors, and that's the valet stand.
Okay, and that pathway just meets that grade.
It just meets. Yeah, it's flush with that
Okay,
brick.
thank you.
Don't worry, I'm not going to drop.
So with this widening, do you have to take out some plants from your project?
It's 6 inch. The ones that go from, like in here, this was approved at 5 feet. This was approved at 4 feet, and then it went back to 5 feet. So we just tighten them up a little bit. 6 inches on each side. It's not a lot of dirt.
You don't even have to redraw the irrigation.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Suni.
A question on, let's just pick the waterfall. You've got a 4-foot path going to that off the 5-foot path. I'll point there, right there.
That's to that unit.
To that unit.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier that you're trying to do the 3'6" to most of the units. I'm assuming that this isn't accessible because it looks like it has
There's
stairs.
stairs, right.
So could that be 42 inches?
That could be 42 inches.
Okay.
This one was 4 feet, and it runs into the walkway that connects those two, which is why that one was
And I think
proposed at
that's
4
fine. I
feet.
mean, I think, switching sizes too many times is problematic and very confusing. A lot of things are happening. What I'd like to see, though, is a situation like that where it does change down to the 42 inch. I think that helps set up a hierarchy of your circulation, and I know that you know about the importance of that. So there are other instances, maybe here where
Yep,
it's
we can do
a
that.
42 in here, 42. I don't know if that's an accessible unit. Anyway, so if you would look at that again, I think that would be important. I don't want to have, I'm moving into a comment. I'm sorry. I totally moved into a comment.
Let's move to comments then, if there are no more questions.
Can I finish my comment?
Yes.
You have 4 different widths. I would be happy with just even 3.
Yeah, I would be happy with 2 because
Yeah.
the guys out in the field, they're just, they're going to say, oh, this
two
is
two might not be enough, Katie, because
Yeah.
this does have sort of a charm and a character where it's evolved over time. I mean, that's what we're trying to strive for. So, but 4, I almost feel like there's a little.
So what
too
if
many.
some of these, when we first started, this was the first day reviewed, we left those at 3 feet.
Yeah.
But functionally, when you put the little 2-inch soldier course, the 1-inch curb edge, suddenly you don't have 3 feet, you have 2.5 feet, 2 foot 7
Well, the other
inches.
thing you have to think about with 3 feet is suitcases being rolled in and out. So maybe you just get rid of the.
So
3
what if we make all the 3s the 42 inches?
Yeah.
And the pathways to a single door, we'll make all of those 42 inches.
I think that would be better,
You
Katie.
think that would work?
Yeah.
We will do that,
Okay.
just for you.
Not for all of us.
Are there any other comments?
I make a motion to
Thank you.
master plan with a comment made.
May I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Do you understand those comments? Okay. Eliminate the 3-foot pathways.
Well, don't eliminate the pathways.
Well, eliminate the pathways at 3 feet. Change them to 3'6". And then where pathways lead to a single, non-accessible, non-handicap accessible unit, change to 42 inches.
No. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm good with that.
So it's going from 3 feet to 42 inches.
Yeah, I can't change a motion. I forget.
So I think that. So yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you vote?
I believe we did. Did we not vote? We did. Oh. Oh, yes. We voted. There we
And you
go.
realize this is 2 meetings in a row we actually approved something on this project.
Well, not
Right
quite.
along.
There's one for staff.
This is approved, and this is a proposal.
Oh, you want that?
This is the previously approved. You don't want to
You presented it. You need to keep it.
Okay.
keep it good. This is the one that got.
I just handed him a proposed.
Jake has this one. Yes.
What Jake doesn't have is the previously approved.
Right.
I'm going to say previously approved.
Susan did not accept the count.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She didn't. Submitted it.
The next item is agendized for 4:15. I will ask the planner if we should wait till 4:15 or if I can open it again at 4:05.
We should at least wait to 15 minutes before, technically we're not supposed to start more than 15
Which
minutes.
would be
before.
4 o'clock.
So you at least wait till 4 o'clock if you would.
All right?
2-minute break?
Yes, we'll take a 2-minute break.
No, that's the previously approved.
Run.
Oh, Katie has it.
The continued concept review for Mission Village. And if you will introduce yourself to the record.
I'm Casey Nagel from Gensler.
Jim Lefevre, also from Gensler.
Katie O'Reilly Rogers, landscape architect.
Let me just kick off for a few introductory comments, and then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague.
Press that microphone.
So that it's bright green.
Okay. Good. Thank you. A few introductory comments to just sort of set the stage. This is a project that we are really excited about, that we think is going to be a great improvement for the El Encanto. Those of you who have been up there, and I assume most of you have, know that this is currently 3 fairly worn motel-style buildings that are pretty much completely out of character with the rest of the project. And to make it worse, we have a fairly developed piece of surface parking in front of them that we're going to take out. Just as a further observation, we have a drive comes in here, we have the surface parking here. Before we started this whole process, we actually had the tennis court and a lot of surface parking in this general area, so this whole area of the project we think is just going to be a substantial upgrade for both the hotel and the community. What we are looking at is, as we look at it, it's kind of 6 buildings. We'll talk about why we might think of it as one more building in just a moment. We have a subterranean parking garage, and at the completion of this project and the UDF project that we talked about last week, essentially all on-site parking other than the transitional parking up front will be below grade. On top of the below grade parking, we have a pad of earth, and then sitting on that pad of earth we have 4 cottages. Sitting in front of the building we have essentially 2 more cottages, and these cottages are all going to be in the mission style character of the hotel. I want to introduce Casey Nagel, who's already introduced himself. Casey is going to lead the Gensler design team for this project, and we'd like to let him walk you through it. Okay.
Thank you. And before you do, if you don't mind, it has been quite a while. I'm going to read the motion from the last time we saw this. Continued indefinitely with the following comments. The architecture is acceptable. Provide an arborist report at the next review. Study adding soil above ground.
Those are comments for this. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
I believe it was on.
Chair, I can take a look at those and try to find those for you, because that covers the whole revised master plan.
Okay. Back to this.
Okay.
The Commissioner greatly appreciates the design staff's efforts and accepts the size, bulk, and scale of the project. The parking plinths shall be further modified to be more successfully wedded to the ground and architecture. Applicant to restudy the scale of the too tall fountain. The curved form of the stairway and the expression of the plinth in stone is supportable. And 5, the architecture remains generally acceptable, with the Commission looking forward to the plan proceeding. At that time, it was Adams Boucher 6-0. Howes, Murray, and Neal are absent.
No wonder you don't remember.
I don't remember at all.
Okay.
I can go back to back to you.
All right. So bear with me. It's been a few years since I've presented to ARB or to cultural fairs in Los Angeles, so it might take me a minute to catch the drive. Sure. So what I'm going to do is this will be is a larger blow-up where we're going to have more keyed elevations as we did in the previous package. The packages will become more and more consistent. The one thing that's different about the approach that we've taken to developing this site is that this site is completely 3D modeled in Revit. So the relationships of heights and sizes of the buildings and the existing landscape here are accurate. Due to the complexity and sensitivity of this project, we decided to take that extra step. The UDF and back of house area will also be treated the same way. Just go back to my notes here real quick. So basically, when we moved forward with the Henry Lenny drawings, which were mostly in kind of hand-drawn state, we worked with our consultants and with Orient Express on how they, the standards for their rooms, their bathrooms, and their guest rooms, and have basically also had to address kind of stair locations that actually work better with the site itself, and in some cases, reversing the stairs so that we aren't kind of over excavating into the lands. As part of this kind of process of 3D modeling it does give us a lot more control and flexibility of giving you guys a clear idea of depth and separation. It also allows us to kind of cast shadows and to really fully see the depths. In this process, we of kind of massing out the entire site. One thing we did notice is that we jump back. Oh, actually 11 by 17s. I'll pass a few of these out. We found that as the buildings got massed out, we started to lose a little bit of the irregularity and character that is really consistent with the site. And so our design principles kind of came in, and we've identified details that are in Henry's sketches and within the site that we're basically going back and making sure that the elevations are in proportion and that they have a balance to them as they did in Henry's drawings.
Do we have copies of Henry's drawings?
I have. Actually, these are not Henry. These are from Gensler. Yeah.
This is the Gensler design team kicking into gear here.
Yeah. Right.
I actually got it out of their file.
Okay.
Because last time I thought I had.
Okay. Still need a flogging for.
I'm not allowed to laugh.
You can laugh, but
Not at that.
you're encouraging them.
Okay. I'm going to drop back here for a moment while we're pulling these elevations up and talk a little further about how the site was developed. As it was laid out by Henry, there were several buildings that kind of were partially on and over the garage and on the earth, and we had pretty grave concerns about differential settlement within these buildings. So there's been a couple things that we've done to kind of mitigate that situation. In 32 here, we actually brought the garage out underneath it so that we can extend that 3-foot pad of dirt between the two buildings so that it has the same sort of bearing in that region. And we also did a similar thing on part of the corner over here as well. The biggest probably change as far as differential settlement is splitting the building 34 into two buildings and separating them from the garage building, because it would create a really very difficult building to have kind of clipped onto the edge of this building, but not physically or not structurally connected to it. We also feel that what it does is that by separating the two buildings, we get more light and air between the two buildings. It breaks down the scale of this larger, instead of having 3 larger buildings at the back, we have more smaller buildings at the front and 2 larger buildings in the back, kind of anchoring the back of the site, similar to how the core cottages right now are kind of backing up to the site.
So this was originally drawn to 2 6-key units, and this was shown as a 4-key unit that sort of stepped down, or an 8-key unit that stepped down the hill. And so what we now have is 2 discrete 4-key units. They're a little bit more in character with the rest of the site.
Also, in developing this further, there's a change on 30 and 31. Originally, 30 was a 1-story cottage that had 2 keys in it, and 31 was a 4-key cottage that was 2-story. Well, now we have basically 2 partial 2-story buildings with the lower story frontage basically creating a kind of flow down the hill. The front of cottage 30, we tried to keep basically the areas that are adjacent to existing 17 and 19. I was reading it upside down. I was going to say 16. 19 and 17. So they have a 1-story proportion that's adjacent to that. And by the 2nd story here, basically helps to kind of mitigate the jump and level to the plinth up here. Probably another thing that ownership wanted to kind of open up is really we had a thicker wall at this, actually a full height, not full height, but a 42-inch solid wall on this perimeter, and they wanted to bring this down so that we can kind of help mitigate the height of this wall here. So
this will be a wrought iron wall as we're currently conceiving.
Right. So the sketches, basically, we are starting right now to implement some. Oh, sure. The sketches, we're already starting to implement these changes. They're not yet reflected in this set, but it's partly for us to guide how we need to continue to develop this, and also kind of give council an opportunity to view our direction and our process on this. And from here, I think at the back here are the landscape, right? We've also included kind of a snapshot, and we looked at that earlier. Let's see. I'm not sure if these are in order, though. I remember them. Oh, it should be right after this detail. Yeah. So again, these are many of the details that show up in the site, and which we are looking at very closely to develop our elevations, to differentiate the buildings, give each building its own character, and that's the picture. Because there's quite a bit of different variation in doors. We have to be sensitive to double doors, which cause a ADA problem with us, but for developing the site. But you'll probably already see that we've started to incorporate some of the garden gates and other aspects like that into the project.
And clearly one of the problems we're going to have with wood frame stucco buildings that are emulating old adobe buildings or the sort of depth of windows and doors, and we're trying to study these so that we can put them in judicious locations, achieve that sort of mass without giving up too much of the owner's rentable square feet.
Maybe we should take a look at the sections real quick. I think the sections... Actually, I'll just start right here. I mean, the nice thing about having these all built in Rev is we actually this line here is falling roughly where the road is, and our buildings are at the same height as the court cottages are right now. You can see that they basically, the buildings are kind of moving down with the site, and as in this case as well, we have here you can see the split between 34A and B. There's anywhere from 3 to 6 feet between the two buildings. And it actually kind of helps to make the scale of, rather than having one very large 34 next to a 28 that's, much smaller, it kind of makes that progression up the hill, I think, much easier to deal with.
So this is an elevation on the east property line, looking as the neighbor would see the project.
Right.
As this is on the north property line, as somebody looking across the street would see the project.
Right. And also this actually would be, from the neighbor's point of view, this first level is mostly going to be hidden by the retaining wall. And again here from the south side, you can see the existing buildings, and they kind of naturally progress up the hill, as well as down the west elevation as well. And this is the parking ramp going down into the garage below.
So as it currently stands, probably about a third of the garage is going to be visible above grade, mostly in the get it right, southwest corner of the garage. And as previously mentioned, it'll be done in the Santa Barbara sandstone material.
Okay. Maybe let's go to an elevation of 30. So currently in our process, because there were the most significant changes to 30 and 31, we have probably spent more time on developing these elevations, and so I believe that the level of detail on these is really what we're using internally as a model, and so right now we're beginning to address probably some of the regularity of windows, say on this elevation. We're already looking at how to how to basically to adjust these to work better with the interior layouts and introduce, the metal grates and the oil windows that we see elsewhere in the site. And due to the large size of the fixtures that are currently designed for this site, some of them based off originals, it is creating a bit of a challenge for us to place lights. This is a very quick pass on lights. It's we're kind of editing back at this point and looking at ways that we can basically either create recesses for them or to create benches or things that would prevent them from being an issue for ADA reasons. So I'm not sure if I should go through each sheet or if we should begin questions or.
Yeah, I have a question on that sheet.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't seeing my scale. They are not printed to scale. Like it says quarter inch, but it's not really printed as a quarter inch.
Does it look like it's less? It looks like we have a fat border here.
Yeah, because I was measuring the elevations, and it says 10 feet, but it measures 9 feet, so I was saying, whoa, what happened here?
Well, actually, no, the model's correct, so I have a feeling that it's
not
in
printed
the printing.
It's not printed to size. Okay, got it now.
Yeah, because I can see a very fat border here. Okay.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be looking for us to comment on all the buildings, show us what you want us to look at. We would.
Sure. So, So basically, this is Cottage 30. This originally was a one-story building. It is now a two-story building, partial two-story with a balcony in front of the upper unit and a enclosed courtyard off one of the keys on the lower unit.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question of the planner? How have the areas changed? If now we're talking about partial 2 stories as opposed to 1 stories. Have we got an increase in area?
In square footage, you mean?
Yes.
I do have the numbers, and they're substantially the same.
Yeah.
Not
They are. All right. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what I need to know.
about
Essentially what we've done is
5 feet difference.
essentially what we've moved one of the keys from building 31, which was on top of the podium, down to building 30, which was off the podium.
Right.
And it's about massaging the roof line.
Can you comment on the buildings together or separate, or how, because it's a huge thing, and I'm not sure how we can get to it, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, part of my problem then is I need to have public comment.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask for public comment, if I may, because we are going to break it up, and the first person will be Mr. Martinson.
Thank you, Madam. I'm Trevor Martinson, architect, and just as a curiosity, I've been here a long time. Of the members of the board, how many of you have been here over 30 years in Santa Barbara? Hey, good. Then you'll understand a lot of the issues regarding the El Encanto and the problems. As you may recall, it was originally an R3 zone that then became an RH zone and then was reduced because of concerns of height and impingement on the residential area to an R2 RH zone. And the issues that we have, especially here with the Mission Village, is that we have a situation where we have 4, if I'm correct, we may even have 5, as I saw them thumbing through these sheets, of 3-story buildings. Now, in the RH zone, only 1 building, which is the main building, and if you recall, the main building got torn down, and surprisingly not enough, it grew. Not by 2 feet, but they excavated 8 feet below it, so it's now 44 feet high, just 1 foot underneath the R3 zone. Now, this is a big problem unless staff, and sometimes I sort of laugh, it's sort of like I'm looking at the commercial where the person is trying to find out about his car and he wants to see, well, where is that report on the car? I'd like to have the report in the, I keep hearing different things. Well, the 2-story over the garage is not really 3-story. Everyone here knows, that's an architect, that they have to have footings. And they go down to the top of the subterranean garage. They also have an elevator that goes down to the garage from the Mission Village, which services the people that are in the handicap issues. There are handicap parking down there. There is no doubt in my mind, and a lot of architects here in town, that that's a 3-story building. Come on. You can solve it, and I've told this to the community development director, is that you have to have a variance to allow more than 1 3-story building on this RH zone site. That's very important. And just as a correction, I would like to see when they describe the project site here, and I'm just going to quote 2, Mission Village consisting of 5 new cottages. Let's make it 5 new 2-story cottages. And I didn't get a chance to look at these drawings. Yesterday they were changing the drawings at about 4:15. I had about 5 minutes to look at them. I will look at them on a closer scrutiny. But I think it's very important for this board to realize that we do have some issues that have been around a long time, and I am supportive of this conditionally. I have met with Project Solutions and the Orient Express staff, and they have indicated they will take under consideration my comments regarding a variance and perhaps a rezoning around the main building. That's very important. And I think that when you do review the main building, you're going to find there's some changes been added. So anyway, thank you, and if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them, or at a later date if you so desire.
Thank you. Mr. DeForest?
As has just been pointed out, these buildings are fairly large, and how they fit into this, the zoning issues and height issues are not a problem, it's the aesthetics, and how they fit into what, especially the northwest corner, is a residential area. So I would like to see some heavy, or if that's the proper word, screening, so these will not, buildings will not impact, to be screened from the residents both on Mission Ridge and to the east. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still on this set of buildings. I'll ask the question that was brought up by Mr. Martinson. If I would just speak on. Can I ask the planner about the zoning issue?
Sure. Yes, Chair. This issue has come up many times. This was discussed at the Planning Commission, whether it was a 2- or 3-story building. It was brought up as part of 2 appeals, so it went before the City Council on 2 occasions. This has been dealt with numerous times. Staff has determined that the buildings above the parking garage are 2-story buildings. They are separate from the underground garage area. There will be no connection. There's no elevator connection from the garage up to or into any of the buildings above. And there will be footings that will not penetrate the garage below. So that's our determination in regard to that. And that issue's been finalized, basically. It's not really an outstanding issue. Staff's not considering any kind of variance at this time or change in zoning.
If it'll help, a couple of quick comments. We did have a discussion with our structural engineer this morning. He assures us that the buildings can be built as just described, that there is no physical concrete-to-concrete connection. The only connection between the buildings will be the utility connection that you have between any adjacent building. The ridge lines, we've absolutely committed to maintaining the ridge lines of the existing buildings being at or lower than what's currently there. So in terms of height, we're very careful. We're being very careful not to grow higher than what exists. And thirdly, there is an elevator, which is a 2-stop elevator that gets you from the parking level to the podium level. It doesn't get into any of the cottages.
Thank you. Take questions from the Commission regarding this group of buildings. There are no questions? I have a question. Why is the plate on the second story 10 feet high?
Was that up here?
Mm-hmm.
This is the base of the roof. Well, in many of the cottages, we actually have a larger ceiling on the second floor. And as we further develop this, there may be more of a split between the two as we figure out what we need as far as the space for the air handling equipment in the rooms themselves. So the ridge height and the base of the roof will remain the same, but probably the floor level may shift to be more equal at some point.
I mean, that kind of changes then where windows are and where doors are and how close the tops of doors are to the eave, and it's problematic.
Change after preliminary.
Yeah, I mean, it's problematic reviewing it at this level if that's what's happening.
So you need to make that commitment soon.
Right.
Okay, are we done with questions on this section?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
just wanted to remind you that you have the possibility of using the subcommittee if you choose to assign some of this work to them.
Do we have comments or questions?
Okay, I think we're on.
It's always helpful.
Why does this elevation? It looks very tall. What? I'm looking at the site plan, and it looks like that definitely looks like 3 big stories. What's going on?
You're actually seeing, what you're seeing in this elevation is actually cottage 31 in the background.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
The walls, the plinth wall material, is that like some kind of a plaster with vines? Is that what you're showing with that hatch? Yeah. Oh, it's sandstone.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Shall we go to comments for this set of buildings? Yes.
We've been dealing with the El Encanto. We've had a little break in the action for the last year or so, but we have 6 items on the table in front of us today. It seems to me that it's a very large menu for the commission for one sitting. I think that this project, just this presentation here, could take a good bit of time. And it seems to me that we should proceed as carefully as possible and not be tempted to rush through things because there's so many items on this docket. I'd like to see this broken up. My comment.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Suding.
Just to remind Commissioner Drury, since you weren't here last time, we do have somewhat of a tight schedule that we have to get this done in a certain amount of time, and I don't remember what that time was. Perhaps staff could reiterate that for the benefit of Commissioner Drury.
Sure. We were told that they would like to have HLC final on everything by September 1st, the meeting of September 1st.
And the reason was just that's the applicant's
That's their
preference.
timeline to move forward and open at that planned date, which is 2012.
And by making that comment, Commissioner Drury, I'm not saying that we shouldn't spend the time, but they did also put on, there was somewhat of a schedule that you didn't have benefit of hearing.
Can I just ask a question? If you could, though, comment on the split, the change, and the plans that were from previously about the cottage 30 and 31, and then the issue of 34 being split into 2. If we could have comments for the applicant on those, at least that their new concept on that, because that's new from what we've seen before.
And we never did find the Lenny drawings?
I have the approved planning commission set. I can show you those if you like.
I would like to see what we thought.
Full sets. So all these here are Mission Village.
Okay.
Do you want to switch to a representative section?
Yeah, I think we'll just whatever is the easiest comparison.
So let's go with cottage 30 since that's the one we were...
Go with cottage 30.
Do you want to, I mean, we can also look
Well,
at
the way
these
they've done it
longitudinal
is-
sections really
yes.
quick.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, that's right. So this is the east section. Why don't we pull it up this way?
All right, thank you.
So here you can see the cottage 30. Actually,
No?
no.
We're looking at the top.
No, okay.
Let's check.
The one on the top.
The one on the top is
That
what
one
is
is-
probably
yeah.
this one.
Yes.
There you go.
So there's 34. And
This is where you split.
This is 33.
Yeah.
The difference is he's shown some retaining wall here, which we don't yet have in our model.
Yeah. Is there a reduction in the massing of 34?
No, the square footage is basically the same. No, I mean, those look to be a taller element that is now 34A.
It might be the scale issue.
No, it's buried.
I think that we have a flat roof line as opposed to this sort of pitched roof line here, so you've got a bigger white face.
Actually, that scale looks correct, the same as this one,
You have 2
doesn't it?
stories showing, so you have 1 story showing.
Yeah.
Well, but also how he's cutting the section through. This is the true section at that point, where he's already taking into account that it's being graded.
Building, right.
Right.
One thing I noticed in the drawings is that these windows became a little bit wider. I'm not sure if it's an exiting thing or not. And for casements, and I was trying to put a scale on it, they start looking really out of scale. When you go 30 or more than 30 on a casement, one single leaf, it's problematic. And I noticed, in the bigger drawings, so I'll mention it now so you cover it. And also sometimes you even have the big 6-foot windows. They seem to be opening, at least they're shown as opening on one side, as opposed to being like an awning, like a studio type of, artist studio type of big window. I think you have one of those in 30, I believe.
I think there's a large window that appears to be an operable window. It's really fixed, and we just need to suppress the lines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And when you've removed windows from a whole facade, what does that mean?
In these cases, and I believe that our designer started to actually address that. And we're going to continue to do so.
Is this one?
Yeah.
He's got one little window.
And it's something we're asking council for, our direction on, but we're going to continue to basically fill these back so that they have the same. I think they still have the mass, but the character we need to build back into it.
At this, if I may say, at this preliminary stage, it helps a lot to see them together.
Yeah.
Because when you start seeing them separately, especially because they are not orthogonal, they're all twisted and so forth, so you get totally lost.
Yes.
So this is very helpful, I think. The question, I know that people talk about 3-story buildings, but if you are and we've been through this before. We've seen this project at least 5 times, that I remember.
Yeah.
So, if you are here, it looks like 1 story, and it may be 3-story if you bore a hole, but you never physically will see 3 stories out of this. I mean, this is a fact. This is not an argument.
Yeah, and also to mention that the sheets that were changed out were actually these same sheets where we took, a section like this, and we basically gave you more of the site so you could actually see the top of the road and see the relationship to 28. So those are what we replaced yesterday evening.
I think it helped first to have it like this, and then we get into the details. I second the comments made earlier about the height and the space for air. I understand the big building. We went through that. When 2 feet or 30 inches were added in the middle, it was a huge thing a couple of years ago. I was not aware that was also necessary in every single cottage. I think you got to find a way to reduce that because it starts really working. I mean, it's just it breaks the scale. It starts looking a lot more like commercial buildings.
Okay.
When you have all that space, if you can put it in the attic or that, you have to find a better way to squeeze the floor to floor.
Well, we actually did. We are squeezing these buildings currently. We may have to go to higher windows. The only thing is that in some cases, there aren't very high windows in the project. There are a lot of low doors and low windows. So, by how we're, not creating a huge plenum between floors on these buildings, we're really trying to reduce that scale.
Certainly, just the discipline of keeping the ridge line to what it is, and the existing buildings are, for whatever else you can say about them, they're pretty low, and we are committed to staying there. So, but I think your point is well taken. We need to go back and look at that, and we will make sure that the cornice line, the face of the wall, is what it should be.
Let me bring the discussion back to Mr. Drury's comment and some of the things that are happening now. Am I incorrect? There are 6 buildings in this block that we're supposed to be looking at today. I don't think that's going to happen. So one suggestion is that it all goes to subcommittee before it comes here. I don't think any of us will agree to an applicant schedule that shortcuts our process where we don't feel comfortable with an approval process. So we will do what we can to help the process in terms of schedule, but not to the detriment of our approvals.
Madam Chair, I do think it's great to streamline this to the subcommittee. However, I do think that the subcommittee would benefit from some just real quick comments, not getting into every little detail, but some more of the broad stroke comments, and then the subcommittee can go from there.
I still don't think we're going to do 6.
I would agree. I would agree.
Let's like that again. So why don't we do 3? Shall we go through 3 for the full board?
Sorry. Come forward. I was just going to reiterate what staff had mentioned earlier, that really our focus today were the adjustments made on building 34 and 30 and 31. So really looking for...
You mean just the breakups of the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, any other direction that you... I mean, I think you've been going there and summarizing that, and that would assist the subcommittee and assist us in coming back to the subcommittee and making progress. Thank you.
Because I was getting perturbed at 6.
No, so we wanted to discuss the doorknobs.
You'll be sorry when we start destroying the doorknobs, won't you? Okay.
I've been looking at this. I'm going to comment on those two items. And I agree with the applicant that those are good moves to the change on 31 and 30 to move some of the mass down. That makes the transition work better. And the same with 34 split into A and B. I think that in my book it's an obvious improvement. Regarding general comments, I'm not sure if the railing, the iron railing works well, because it does take some of the cottage things. It starts becoming very repetitive. I understand that it lowers the height, and that's a plus, but it starts looking more like a commercial project. This long railing on top of the wall. The circular element on the wall, I believe is new. I don't remember seeing that. So, in the corner to turn that circular.
You know what, Mr. Joe, I have a feeling that your comments will be generally agreed with, unless I'm incorrect. So perhaps you might be phrasing them for Gabriella's.
Well, maybe it's if we agree.
All right.
The commission that circular element in the vortex, I think it's new. I don't remember seeing it before. Was it there before? Was it? Yeah.
Right there.
I was there before. Okay. I think the railing. It seems like, I mean, I don't want to I mean, so it strikes me as a commercial touch. It just starts looking more like an institution rather than a whole bunch of things that happen. I don't know what the solution is. I can see the pros of shortening the wall, but the minus is that it starts unifying the whole site, and it becomes more like a commercial building.
It sounds to me like we need to look at breaking it up and having open expanses where we can afford them, but not just papering the site with them.
That's what that's the way I feel. Yeah.
I think that's a good. I like it.
And I just want to make a comment. We haven't seen yet the landscape portion, and that's going to be an important component to how things seem repetitive or broken up or whatever. So at some point we'll just have to look at that general approach.
So can I say that the commission, as at least a majority, does agree with Mr. Peugeot's comment regarding our preference for the redistribution of massing as proposed and breaking up 34 into 34A and B and redistributing some of the masses so that there are partial two-story buildings. Am I correct?
Yes.
The other general comment is to look at the at the height of the buildings, especially the space allocated to air conditioning or HVAC.
Yes.
That because it creates an odd proportion, it makes the space between the windows and the roof too high, and it's odd. So if you can minimize that, that would be also, I think the other thing that strikes me in general is the look at the windows as being too wide, especially for a single casement, one leaf casement. I think anything over 28 inch, 28 inch, anything where the leaf is a certain width, it starts looking odd.
I would agree with that. And just to piggyback on the first comment regarding the height of the plate, our preference is for a second story to be slightly lower plate than the first story, and that's the proportion we're going to want.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
One thing I noticed in looking at the sections is all of the mechanical is below the joists. And I don't know if, studying, getting those ducts up into the joist bays and thereby decreasing the necessary drop ceiling soffit. In other words, it's a continuous soffit, whereas maybe it doesn't need to be continuous over a hallway or that type of thing. But maybe just look at the mechanical system again to see what can be done to lift those things up into the dead space.
The way we're approaching it is that the mechanical units would be generally over the bathrooms and entries, so where we can afford to bring the ceiling down to 8 feet, and we're probably going to, because these rooms aren't so large, we're working with really kind of blowing vertically off the walls of the bathroom and entries, so that we don't have to drop the ceilings for ducts inside the rooms.
Right.
Yeah, I think what you've been looking at is Cottage 12, where we did show the ductwork. It's not shown in here yet. Cottage 12 has much larger guest rooms, and our mechanical engineer wasn't comfortable with just blowing it from the face of the wall the way you'd more typically see in a guest room. So I think we have more flexibility here.
Have we adequately addressed what you were looking for in terms of this?
It's my understanding you are in support of the changes to 34, 30, and 31.
In terms of the general redistribution of massing and breakup, yes.
Okay, and then maybe you can say how, if we want to go to subcommittee, what you would like them to bring to subcommittee next time, how many buildings.
Pardon? Yes, Don is on the subcommittee.
Well, he'll probably be out.
Is he not? I can't. No, actually, I can't remember.
No, I don't think he was on it because he knew he was going to be out of it.
That's right.
No.
Okay. So I'll remind this. Hi.
You're on the subcommittee.
I'm on the subcommittee, which is that I think we agreed that 10 to 12 on the days of HLC meetings, which means we basically get no work done that day.
And
That we agreed that might be the most opportune time to meet.
Actually problematic for consent.
Yeah, it is problematic. So,
And we couldn't get another allocated for consent or... Are you on? You're not on this one. You can get the consent on the day that I have to serve. It's only maybe 2 more consent for that.
that we hope.
If we didn't want an hour, just 10 to 11. I don't know.
That would be great.
what if we even did 9 to 10 or 9 to 11, and that way we have some time in the morning
to actually
we have a block of time. Whereas if we go from 10 to 11,
we're stuck on.
We only have an hour or so before we have to start this meeting. And
sometimes we have subcommittee meetings.
I think it would be better to do 9 to 10 or 9 to 11 if need be.
Does that feel?
Whatever you want, baby.
9 to 10. Shall we set it at 9 to 10? I'll change my computer calendar.
Okay.
And only 9 to 11 if we must, and I think probably our little pea brains can't take more than an hour anyway.
So that's going to be next Wednesday.
Yes.
2 weeks.
It'll be 2
2
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah, that would be.
So given that we have a preference, oh,
What's that?
If we can focus it down to a couple of cottages, I think it could be
Yeah, that's
productive.
the following.
I don't know if you wanted to see.
so if we are just going to do an hour preference or 9 to 11, then how much can we subsume in an hour and help the project?
I mean, if it's not done in 1 hour, it's not done. I mean, like, you go a lot faster. I mean, if the applicant is prepared in 1
Yes.
hour, you see. I mean, at least when I see it, it only takes for half an hour. It's done or not done, and that's
Right.
it. You know?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what we could do is we can reserve this space, because at 11 would be consent anyway, so the room would be set up, and I'll reserve it from 9 to 11, and if you go from 9 to 10 and you're done, great. If you need the extra time, the room will be available for you.
Thank you. So let's break, what is the applicant wishing to bring forward before, at the next time?
Well, do we even need to decide that right now?
No. Why don't you decide what you think you can
Yeah.
get done in an
And
hour?
tell Ms. Kennedy, and then Ms. Kennedy will,
And we will do what we can.
disseminate it to us.
Yes. To subcommittee? I don't think so.
Maybe we should make a motion. Talking about our support for the mass Vulcan scale on those two changes.
I think we kind of did start a motion of that kind, yes. And I'll assume that Mr. Peugeot made it. So I don't think I'm allowed to make motions. And second?
Madam Chair, but the actual motion, is that continued indefinitely? I have the comments, but not the motion.
Continued indefinitely or
No,
2
continue
weeks?
2 weeks. It'll be continued.
Continued 2 weeks. All those in favor of the
Aye.
motion?
Sorry.
All those opposed? Abstain? That motion carries, and the subcommittee will meet in 2 weeks at 9 o'clock in order to address whatever the applicant wishes to bring before us. Thank you, Mr. Peugeot.